Today I would like to talk to you a little bit about having an empty mind and what that means. I was laying in my bed recently. Sometimes the bed is the best place to manifest the Dharma and to realize truths about Buddhism and to have somewhat psychedelic experiences without the aid and the problems that come with drugs. So I was laying there in kind of an interstitial state, resting in the middle of the night. I had woken up and I felt these thoughts arising in my mind. And there was a sharp awareness manifesting in that moment, wherein I could see these thoughts coming. They were people, events, instances, and they were dreams basically, but it was almost like a lucid dream, and I could also see them coming up, and I had no idea where these thoughts were coming from. It was literally like when you walk down the street and you see a person walking the other way and you don't know anything about them and they lock eyes with you and you recognize them completely as the other. That's what these figures and these moments in these thoughts were. They were like they were completely separate from me. In Japanese there is a word, nen, N-E-N. The kanji for this word has two characters, and they mean mind and moment. So they actually have a word in Japan, and it's a word that you'll hear in certain Zen circles. I think it was Uchiyama in Opening the Hand of Thought that talks about nen moments. And to be honest, when I first read that, I couldn't make heads or tails of it, but I've been looking at some work by Shoto Harada Roshi, who's a contemporary teacher in the Rinzai tradition, and he kind of made it very clear in one of his books on Zazen, which you cannot find in stores, if anyone's wondering. People have been asking me about this. I guess apparently these, but anyways, doesn't matter. So the point is, nen means mind moment. So it's a moment of mind manifesting. My girlfriend tells this amazing story. She is camping. I think this is when she was 18 years old. She was camping and she was on an island, and I think they had stayed up all night, partied. She woke up in the morning and went to go outside of her tent, had a seizure. So this was the first epileptic seizure that she ever had in her life. And it was like, well, no, I'm sorry. This was the first time she had had a seizure that was so bad and powerful that finally she had to figure out what the heck was going on inside her brain, because she had had little seizures before and she wasn't sure what it was. So she's a diagnosed epileptic now. At the time she didn't know this. She's 18 years old. She bends down to unzip the tent, and she just has a massive grand mal seizure. Falls down, smacks her head on like the tent post. Wakes up, and she's outside of the tent, and there are faces looking down at her. Now, here's how she describes it. I will try and, I should probably just get her to tell it yourself, but I think she's a little bit camera shy. So how she describes it is, there was just awareness. She had no I am, no me, no Tony, no I'm an 18-year-old Croatian woman on an island somewhere on planet Earth. There was simply this platform of awakeness. That was it. Awakeness and awareness, right? And there were faces staring down at her. She had no idea whatsoever who they were. But I think she thought that they were 8 years old. I remember something about that in her story. So basically, she got up and got away from them because she didn't have a good vibe in that situation. Now, she describes walking and moving, right? And as she reflects upon this really massive experience many, many years later, what interests her about it is the fact that she was totally fine without any sense of a self, without any political affiliation, without any knowledge of where her GPA was at, whom she was dating, what religion her parents are, where she's going to college, what she's going to do with her life, are the Russians going to nuke, is capitalism going to consume the planet, create global warming, destroy us all. The many, many things that many, many of us, including her, would normally be worrying about. This hornet's nest of ideas, this buzzing cloud of self was totally scattered. And she simply was able to move and walk without any problem. And she might be romanticizing it a little bit, but and this does happen with epileptics. I mean, they have spiritual experiences often. Dostoevsky talks about this. I forget where, probably The Idiot, I think. They're right before a seizure. The great Russian novelist Dostoevsky, who was also a very spiritual writer, talked about, before his seizures, he talked about this. He said he would taste God, or he'd experience God, the presence of God, and he said it was worth everything that came after. And that dude had some bad seizures. Oh, they were bad. But so my girlfriend Tony, she had this seizure, she got up, she started walking, and there was absolutely no problem. And she said, then something interesting happened. Like, gradually, as she was walking and she's walking around this island, and gradually, as her sense of self returned to her, as she began to get the feeling for the I am, the me, as that began to happen, she began to get more and more scared and angry and depressed, until finally, a few days later, she was real low after the enormity of this experience was placed back upon, having had a seizure, the experience of having a seizure was placed back upon like her shoulders, and she was fully back in herself again. But it's really wonderful to hear her talk about being alive, walking without any sense whatsoever of a self. She was like Emerson's eyeball. She was just pure seeing, pure experiencing without ego. This is not to romanticize epilepsy or seizures in any way, shape, or form. It's simply to point out that sometimes there are these extraordinary experiences, like a seizure, the one that my girlfriend had, or maybe you get knocked on the head, or maybe you take a psychedelic drug, or maybe you just have the gift of an opening, a Satori or a moment of grace or something. And like fog, that self that one is just completely acting from and taking for granted in that moment is totally swept away. And there's this awareness or awakeness that happens. So what is this awakeness or awareness? Well, so I've told this story before, I'll tell it again. We used to do workshops at the monastery, and we would host different Buddhist groups. We hosted a Tibetan group once. We had this guy who was like, I don't want to call him a corporate mindfulness teacher. He was a very serious Tibetan Buddhist teacher, but he looked just like the kind of guy. Like, he looked like if you're having trouble with somebody in a store, this is the manager guy that comes out. Like, he was very distinguished, and he was always wearing these collared shirts with buttons, and that he would button, and he has a silver hair, and he talked like this. And he was a Tibetan Buddhist teacher. And he came into the kitchen one day where we were all cooking, and he said, "What the fuck is Buddhanature? I've been talking about Buddhanature for 40 years now, and I don't know what the fuck it is." And he pranced around the kitchen for the next 20 minutes asking us all what the fuck Buddhanature was. Well, friend, Buddhanature is this awakeness. It's this awareness. Isn't that crazy how sometimes you're just getting ready to get triggered and get in a fight with your spouse, and you just burst into laughter, and you don't know why you did it, and you let it go. Something happened there. Some shift happened. Some awakeness happened. It occurred within your internal sphere or realm of experience, but you certainly don't want to claim it as your own, though you're really happy that the manifestation and the arising happened. Like, awakeness just spontaneously happens. I think there are different layers to the manifestation of this awakeness or awareness. Different, like, I think there can be really like Satori-like moments of awakeness, and then there can be smaller ones that we experience day after day after day, moment after moment after moment. And in many ways, it's our practice to catch these moments, moment after moment. Catch these moments. That's not quite the right way of putting it, because there's no one there to catch them, and there's nothing to catch, and there's no net to catch it in. But I think you know what I mean. I'm going to use words to sort of grasp or point to the experience that I'm talking about. So very often, for example, we'll be sitting on the cushion and we're meditating, and we'll get lost in thought, and that's can be a very depressing experience for a lot of us. Like, what the heck am I doing this meditation for if I can't even control my mind for 3 seconds on the cushion before I'm lost in thought? Well, the good news is, sooner or later, you're not lost in thought, and you realize that you just were drifting. Now you have a moment where awakeness or awareness is manifested. So practice, for me lately, has in many ways been, throughout the day, continually becoming awake to the awake moments. Maybe noting them, maybe recognizing them, maybe like in first grade, how teachers, back when I was a Gen X child, they probably don't do this anymore, but they would take little stars, stickers, or little, like a basketball sticker or a sunshine sticker, and they would put it on top of the page. And it always felt so good when your homework came back with like a little sticker on it. Just brightened the whole thing up. Well, these moments of noticing awakeness and awareness is like me putting a little sticker on the moment to teach the situation going on within me that this is how we want to live. This is what we want to cultivate. This is how we awaken more and more. So the term Buddhism or Buddha translates into one who is awake, as I've talked about so many times here. You must be growing tired of hearing about it. And Buddhism is like the practice of awakeness. So what's the opposite of that? Well, the opposite of that is being in the dream, right? That's why that experience I had the other day was so, I think, fortunate as I lay in bed and watched my reality form inside my head from where I have no idea. The thoughts and images were just coming. There was a blank space, and then they appeared, and then they were gone. The state of dreaming, or Maya, illusion, ignorance, for me, is this dreamlike, flat, one-dimensional, straitjacket-like state where I am believing in the matrix, as it were. I am identifying with and as my thoughts. Or another way to put it is, there's no awakeness or awareness, i.e. no of the thoughts themselves. I'm simply them. And that is suffering in Buddhism. That is the state of dukkha. To identify with and as your mind and the thoughts that are arising in your mind, no matter how pleasant they are, or good they are, or true, correct, and right they are. If you are synonymous with your thoughts, and that is how you're living as your thoughts, and with your thoughts as your foundational reality, that's the state of suffering. And you live and die by good and bad and right and wrong. But everybody has those moments where they catch themselves, right? What are we catching in those moments? I mean, for me, it's like I am catching myself about to become myself. And I'm saying, nope, I'm not going to have that temper tantrum, or I am not going to give in to the impulse to smoke that cigarette, or I don't need to pour half a cup of sugar into my coffee this morning, or I don't need to say that stupid thing to my girlfriend that I think is funny but is maybe a little bit jerk-ish. You catch yourself, right? A moment of awakeness. A moment of awakeness disrupting, interrupting this pattern of self. One way to think about this is like a mirror. So it's very strange to think about how our minds can reflect the world around us, just like a mirror does. I realize that that's a total cliche when I say it, but there's a reason that it's a cliche. When I am full of, puffed up with myself, the hologram of I am takes on a quite extraordinary and spectacular quality. It becomes three-dimensional. It has flesh and shape, and it has a teleology, a future that it's heading towards, and it has a backstory that it stands upon. And there are all these juicy emotions and feelings and melodramas. This is, for example, if I'm arguing with someone in front of me, or if I'm just making some sort of passionate political point, or making a claim for some great piece of art that I love. Any of those things, it's like a manifestation, can be a manifestation of self, right? But there are also those moments when the self disappears and the mind is like a mirror, and it's just simply reflecting the world. The world is a pattern upon it, right? And there are no judgments, there are no thoughts about. And there is no sense of self here on this side and sense of other over there. And this is what we could call, what is sometimes called like original mind in Zen. There's a great text called Verses on Faith Mind or on Believing in Mind. It's the Shinjin-mei is the Japanese word for it. Let's see here, and the author is, this is a book by Taigen Shodo Harada Roshi called On Believing in Mind Commentary. Sanso Kanchi Zenji is the author. And this is, of course, it's a poem and a text that captures eloquently some of the things I've been trying to talk about today. So I want to read you some lines from this poem. It's the great way, these are, of course, the classic opening verse. The great way is not difficult for those who have no preferences. Do you realize how radical that is? That's one of the reasons I kind of have slowed everything down today, and I'm trying to ease out some really deep teachings for me too. It's really deep. Like how many lineages, how many religious traditions, how many people do you know, wise, unwise, and otherwise, who will tell you that the way is no preferences, right? And these are the opening lines to this poem. The great way is not difficult for those who have no preferences, when neither love nor hate arises, all is clear and undisguised. So this is that mirroring that I was talking about. My teacher used to say that enlightenment is self-recognizing self. So I think one way of looking at this is, you know, when hate and love don't arise, things are seen as they are, before opinion and before the arising of the self, before the 10,000 things, as we say in Buddhism. Now, that state of before, that's the awakeness. That's like the portal, maybe that it comes through, or maybe that is it. I don't know. I don't want to talk too much about this sort of thing, but just that's our birthright. That's the ground that we stand on. It's like the plot that we were born on, right? And like nobody can take that away from us. Nobody can redefine that out of existence for it. Nobody can grab it and offer it or remove it. That's from which everything is manifest, is that ground. So I think that's what is being talked about here when we talk about the great way. It's not difficult, right? It's before difficulty. It's before simplicity. It's the foundation. It's the source. It's, you know, God is the term that we use here in the West, but that is, of course, a very loaded and problematic term. But let's freely use it. Let's seize it from the pedants and the televangelists. They go on to say, if you wish to know the truth, then hold to no opinions for or against anything. To set up what you like against what you dislike is the disease of the mind. So these are like the two opening salvos, paragraphs in this book on believing in the mind. How does Shodo Harada translate it? On believing in mind. And the mind that's talked about here is the mind that is prior to thinking, prior to the formation of thought, prior to the arising of self, that coagulation of thoughts, that goopy stickiness. What is it? I guarantee you, one day they will explore the inside with science the way they've explored the outside. And they will discover that like the self was like this hologram that attained gravity and could like pull reality together a certain way and pull you back down to the ground in a certain way, for good and for bad, right? But what the tradition is teaching and assuring us and saying we should have faith in and believe in is a truth that is, truth might not be the right word, but a reality and an experience that is way vaster and boundaryless and contains this small I am self. And if we just continue to identify with and as this I, this me, this thinking agent, will never experience that other state, which is our birthright. Now, if that sounds a little bit esoteric or hard to reach, don't worry. This wonderful poem closes with this. Each thing reveals the one. So each thing, you, me, every cell in our body, this chair, the floor, the sky, each and everything reveals the one. The light, if you will, shines through each and everything. So every single damn thing you see as you walk down the street today is God. That's our homework for today. Every single solitary thing we look at is God. My teacher used to say, everything is illuminating. And I think that's what he meant, okay? Each thing reveals the one. The one manifests as all things, right? So all things are one, and the one is revealed in all things. To live in this realization is not to worry about perfection or non-perfection. So you get to have a break from your anxiety today. You have been given permission not to worry about perfection or non-perfection, right? You get to walk like a Buddha through your world, laughing at all the things that normally cause anxiety, suffering, and problems. Laughing with an open, jolly heart, not with cynicism or meanness, of course. To put your trust in the heart-mind is to live without separation, right? Without separation. And in this non-duality, you are one with your life source. There's, in that just that short paragraph, there's such a prescription for how to live, right? Like, first of all, there's the insight that everything is manifesting as the one, and all the different things are manifesting as the one, and the one is manifesting as all the different things, and it just, we do not worry about perfection or non-perfection. Put your trust in the heart and the mind together, heart, mind, shin is the word, and live without separation, right? Without me over here, world over there, right? Let the two reflect each other, become one with each other. And in this non-duality, you are one with your life source. The final words are, to this poem, words, words. The way is beyond language, for in it there is no yesterday, no tomorrow, no today. On that note, we will conclude these words. If you like this channel and you get something out of these videos, you can support me here at Patreon. It's patreon.com/ShozanJackHobner. I offer these videos for free, but more and more I am relying on this as a primary way to pay my bills. So if you get something out of this and you want to support this channel, super. You can go there on Patreon. Also, hit the like and hit the subscribe. It helps get this channel out there. Thank you for listening. I'm in a bit of a strange mood today. I've got a horrible back issue going on. It's going to be okay. Don't worry. You don't have to write, I hope your back gets better, in the comment section, because by the time you read this, watch this video, they'll be gone. And I am recovering from, I think it's COVID, frankly, because my taste buds were out for a while. So my energy's a little bit low. I'm a little bit in an odd place today, but I appreciate you putting up with my video today, which is not maybe as funny as I like my videos to normally be, but I just wanted to share something so subtle that it completely eludes words entirely, like the ones I'm closing this video with.